Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Or I say probably Monika as well. We're so excited to be here. We didn't do a Facebook Live last week because we were getting ready for a retreat, and I miss it. I miss when I'm not here hanging out with my people.
I know last week was intense in the best of ways, and that's actually kind of what we want to talk to you about today. So, first of all, for those of you who don't know us, I am Monika, and this is Krista, and we are the founders of Fearless Public Speaking. And it's kind of cool. I think this tagline came up for us this past weekend with business owners with a message. And I love it because that's really who we tend to work with is business owners who have a message they want to use in their business. So super psyched. Krista and I just co-led together. Krista's led retreats before, but we just led together our first retreat in Clearwater, Florida. Krista is still in Clearwater right now. So how's the weather out there, Krista?
It's a little chilly today, but I just came back from kayaking. It's like low 60s, so way better than St. Louis.
Yeah. It is snowing a lot here in Denver today. So you might see my dog is back here like staring out the window because he'd rather be in the snow. So all right. So what we want to talk to you guys about today is a couple things. First of all, like what was messy as fuck in our retreat? Because let's be real, you can have the best laid plans and no matter what you do, stuff is not necessarily going to go wrong, but you're going to learn lessons every single time. I always tell people about this. I don't know if it was true for you, Krista, for your wedding when you were married, but like weddings, every time I have a friend getting married, I'm like, look, shit's going to go not according to what you planned. And that's actually what makes it memorable. So in the end, it doesn't end up being all a bad thing. So we are going to start out by sharing with you, I know we said 5, but we got a little bonus one in there. So 6 things, the messy lessons that we learned from running our first retreat. And then we want to talk to you because we don't want to stay in the, what to change side. We want to talk to you about what went really well too. So Krista, do you want to kick us off with number 1?
Yeah, and before we do that, right, there's always more stuff to add. I like that you brought up the planning a wedding because they're very similar at the end of the day. It's planning a big event for people. So for anyone here who's watching, and you're probably watching because I'm assuming maybe you want to lead retreats yourself. If you've planned a wedding, then you can very easily plan a retreat. I think it's easier to plan a retreat than a wedding.
Yeah.
And yeah, just pay attention today. Take notes with what we're talking about. We're going to be, our voices. We're not afraid to be raw and unfiltered and vulnerable. So that way you guys can learn from our mistakes, and we're going to tell it how it is. And we're going to tell both sides. Like Monika said, we're going to start off with some things where we made mistakes and things didn't go as planned. And then we'll end with the things that we felt went really well. And so again, this is to help you all, especially if you're thinking about leading your own retreats, and maybe you can learn from our mistakes, and maybe you'll probably still make your own mistakes. Let's be honest. And mistakes aren't bad, right? Yeah. The overall theme here is that we want to really show that even if there are mistakes, it can be turned into beautiful lessons, and it's how new boundaries are formed. And mistakes, failures, setbacks, whatever you want to call them, it's all part of success, and you can't be afraid of it. You have to embrace it, lean into it. And that's what we're doing here on this, I was going to say this podcast today, this our Facebook Live that is actually we're thinking about maybe turning into our first podcast episode. So we're so happy about that.
Yeah. So real quick, 2 things that came up for me. And once we get that podcast live, we will share with you the information, of course. But number 1, I would love to see in the comments, anyone who is watching, have you planned a retreat before, or are you thinking of planning a retreat? Drop us a note in the comments and tell us. And then the second one, I know I see Molly's watching us here today. If any of our other women from the retreat are watching, please know that we are not going to use any names or call anyone out for anything, because it's really not about anything specific to any one person. It's more about me and Krista. So I just want to make sure none of them are in the background like, oh shit, what are they going to bring up? So safe space, just our lessons.
Totally. Thanks for adding that.
Yeah.
Okay. So our first thing that we realized is food is a personal relationship.
Oh my gosh, it so is.
So let's expand upon that. Let's see, what did we do? We had surveys that we prepared ahead of time for the women to put their dietary restrictions. And I think almost everyone had dietary restrictions, including Monika and I. So everyone was either gluten-free or dairy-free or sugar-free or keto, which is awesome. I think it's so cool that we're all being so conscious of our health, but it definitely, it was really challenging at times to be able to honor everyone's needs between snacks. We provided snacks for the girls. And then on Friday night, we did a pizza night. And then on Saturday, we took everyone out to dinner, and then we catered 2 of our lunches. And sometimes the restaurants would, get orders wrong. And then we realized that we didn't have enough protein in our snacks. And so it was just, I'm just going to be honest, it was stressful. What was your take on the whole thing, Monika?
I mean, food is already like such a challenging relationship for me because, many of you might know, like I'm lactose intolerant and I'm sensitive to garlic, onions, coconut, mildly sensitive to gluten. So like all of the things play into this. And so I think that what came up for us too is we want to be so accommodating, and this will actually go into our second lesson we learned, but we want to be so accommodating. And sometimes it's nearly impossible to do that unless you come up with different creative ways. So we've got new ideas we're throwing around for our next retreat. I don't know about you guys, but when I worked in the corporate world, they had an option. It was like the per diem per day, like you get $50 a day to spend on food, and that's your allotment. And then you provide receipts back or whatever. And so, we're thinking like, how do we provide more flexibility for people? Because we respect, both Krista and I respect that food is such a personal choice. But it was stressful because we don't like to see anyone hurting or tummies hurting or feeling hungry or hangry. We don't like to see that because it makes us feel like we're not doing our job, and we know it's not about us. But it was definitely just a test for both of us to make it through all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the next one that I want to lead into, we kind of started talking about it already, is that your boundaries will be tested and you will want to accommodate everyone's needs. And this is kind of what we were talking about with the food, right? But there is such a thing as being over accommodating. And this is something, Krista and I are both recovering people pleasers, not fully recovered because it's a lifelong journey of moving out of that world, but recovering people pleasers. We want everyone to be so happy. We want things to be exactly as people want them to be. We know these women spent time, money, blood, sweat, and tears to be there with us. And we want to make sure that we take care of them. And so for us, part of that, where that came up, food was one of the things. But another thing was like sticking to the schedule as much as possible. So we had a really busy Friday. People were exhausted. There was some jet lag things. And so we moved things around a bit so people could, do speeches at different times or have their photo shoots at different times. And in some ways that was really good. But in other ways, it was also challenging because it was hard for everyone to know, okay, when are we supposed to be where, what's happening at this point in time, what's changed, and to keep track of everything. And that caused stress, I think, not only for me and Krista, but for some of the other women that were there too. So I think that there's this balance of, asking yourself, what am I trying to accomplish with this accommodation? And where also can we teach people how to speak up for themselves and what they need? Krista, what do you want to throw into that?
Yeah, I liked everything that you said. And then just for all of you too, being a people pleaser isn't a bad thing. Like it means that you care about other people and you want people to have good experiences and good outcomes. And then especially the more that you start to up your prices, like our next retreat is going to be double of what this retreat was. And I always feel like I kind of start to put more pressure on myself that I want people to have this amazing experience. I want them to get their money's worth. But yeah, at the same time, you can drive yourself crazy if you're trying to meet everyone's individual requests and needs. And so and you have everyone coming at you with like, oh, I'm going to be late here, or I need to leave early here, or I'm feeling stressed, I need to go for a walk, or like everyone has different needs, which is great. But then at the same time, it can be just really like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. And there was a couple times where I had to just like give myself permission to leave and go take a quick walk so I could like do a little bit of self-care and recharge, since I'm an introvert. And so, taking care of yourself as a leader is really important. So that way you can really be present and you can be strong, and you're not getting thrown off by all these different requests and things coming at you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So moving into the next one, I'm going to start this and I'm going to kick it over to Krista. Having an Airbnb seemed like a really good idea, but in the end, it was more trouble than it was worth. So let me rewind this a little bit too. Before we did this retreat, let me paint the picture for you, okay? Because that's what we do. We're storytellers. Krista completed her last retreat, and there was some feedback that was like, it'd be nice to have some accommodations. Krista and I are like, oh my God, this sounds like a great idea. Like, we'll have all the women in the same house. They can spend time together, get to know each other, talk, all of that kind of stuff. So we went out, we found a place we had targeted about 10 people for the retreat. We found a place that would hold up to 9 people, and we booked it, everything looks good on paper. And then we started getting closer to the retreat. And as we started looking into the details of like, okay, how many beds are there? A couple people might have to share beds. Some might be like a sofa bed versus an actual bed. And then also we had some people that live locally versus coming in from out of town. And then we had people who weren't able to meet the retreat, and our numbers dwindled. And that's okay. Like, this happens. This is another part. Actually, this will be the next thing we talk about. But this is another part. You've got to be prepared that sometimes people have shit come up in their life and you may have less numbers. So all of these things created this perfect storm for me and Krista to be like, oh my God, like, we thought we were doing a really good thing. But in the end, it ended up just being more stress for us, and I think also for the women, than it was worth. Krista, what do you want to throw into that?
Yeah, I thought we were doing a really cool thing and making it easier for everyone, but I think we added more stress for everyone. And we spent a lot of money. I'm going to be honest. We spent $800 for 3 nights, and I think we had about 2 of the women that ended up taking advantage of a 9-person house. So again, we're like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen, right? When you're leading retreats, you're going to make expensive financial decisions that the next time you're going to be like, I don't think I'm going to do that again. And we just realized when we did our retreat orientation kickoff call a month before the retreat started, and we had brought up to the women that, you might have to share a bed with someone, and we could just see in everyone's eyes like, oh, this isn't going to be good. It was kind of like the food situation. So again, I'm realizing, especially for the women, we attract sensitive empaths, introverts. They really do, and myself included, they really do value having their own space to recharge, especially being around people all day and doing a lot of energetic work. So what we've decided for the retreat that we'll have in September in Colorado is that we'll probably get like a block of hotel rooms, and then get a discount there. Or we'll look into like a retreat center where people can have like individual rooms or cabins or something along those lines, and incorporate it into our pricing, and just be a little bit smarter about it financially, and honoring the fact that, at the end of the day, probably most adults don't want to share beds. And luckily, no one had to share beds this time, because we did have 2 people in a 9-person bedroom, or not a 9-person bed house. So it just was, I would say that was the thing that I really was kind of kicking myself for, and was like, oh, we should have done that differently, but now we know.
Yeah. And that's really what this is all about, is that you can't anticipate. A lot of the times you can't anticipate this stuff. And remember that no matter what decision you make, it's not going to work for somebody. this is back to the thing about like, you can't accommodate everybody. Somebody is always going to be a little put off by a decision. And that's where you have the opportunity to talk with them about it and dig into what's behind that and how can they stand for themselves still and still get what they need.
True. And adding to that, Monika, yeah, anytime you make a decision, you're probably going to trigger someone or you're going to piss someone off. You just can't make everyone happy at the end of the day. And if you're trying to make everyone happy, you're going to kill yourself.
So that kind of starts to go into our next view, which is like, no matter how much you prepare, humans are complicated and you never know what's going to come up. And part of that, what we learned too, is people canceling at the last minute. And it's really easy to take that personally and be like, oh my God, it's this trend. Nobody wants to be here with us. They don't think it's valuable. Nobody likes us. And really, it's not about that. You got to take ego out of the picture and be like, okay, get curious. Talk to them what's going on, because a lot of times there's health stuff or there's financial things that change or people have kids and something came up or there's a sickness or 10 million different options of things that come up because life is crazy. And we also have to trust ourselves and the women or men in whatever situation who are coming to these events, that they know what's best for them. We can coach them. We can challenge them to think differently, which is our job. But in the end, we have to respect and value the decision they make, because guilting them or making them feel bad about it is not going to make us feel better or them.
Yeah. Yeah, that was challenging for Monika and I when we had 3 last-minute cancellations. And in our kind of more exhausted states, sometimes we wanted to get, emotional about that. And luckily we have each other to keep each other in check. And so we remembered, like, okay, let's, reach out to the women and see what kind of support they need at this time. And we, placed ourselves in their shoes as well. Like, they must be super bummed. They're probably just as bummed as we were, right? Like, you pay for this retreat and then you can't come at the last minute. And so that was hard and that was challenging. But at the same time, you can't take it personally. In business, you can't take anything personally at the end of the day, because it never is personal. And then, we had someone leave early. She left on Saturday night instead of Sunday morning. And then some people left earlier on Sunday before the whole retreat was over. And so again, you just have to be really flexible and open-minded and continue on with your schedule, but also know that, people are going to kind of let you know what works best with their situations and their family and their health. And it's just like this kind of dancing in the moment.
Mm-hmm. So. And Jesse threw a comment in here saying people also need to own their emotions. It's the same in my circles. I always tell my women that they set their boundaries. They can leave whenever they want to or are triggered, but we're not responsible as a facilitator for another person's emotions. That's beautiful, Jesse. And I think applies to all this stuff for ourselves, right, as facilitators, as well as for the people who are attending. And that's really what we are trying to lead by example and teach the people that show up to these sessions. And I love that Jesse just threw in, but if someone is open to get coached through it, I offer that. That's a really big thing. Krista's taught me so much, because when people were like, I can't go, I'd be like, they're not going. Oh my God, what's wrong? And Krista's like, take a second. Why don't you ask some questions? And when you lean into your intuition, especially if you feel like you're an intuitive person, which many, many of us are, many of our audiences, if you lean into that and you feel like there's something deeper, you might really help them sort through some of that. And they may feel better about their decision not to come. You may feel better about their decision not to come. So that applies to really anything that we're talking about, is there's always something deeper, which leads into our next one. And Krista, I'm going to let you take that one.
And I wanted to, just address Jesse's thing too. Jesse, thank you for adding that. And something that, Jesse, I know you've been talking about leading retreats, that at the first welcome opening ceremony that we always do, we always talk about boundaries and teaching people. And especially for us, this was a public speaking retreat, right? So it's all about speaking up, but we really made sure that we told the women, we understand, that you all have personal needs and different emotions that are going to come up, and we want you to take care of yourself. If you need to go to the bathroom, if you need to go do a little walk outside, you need some space, if anything we say triggered you, like give yourself permission to honor what comes up and to take care of yourself. And this is the place to do it. This is the space to do it. And so I think anytime you lead a retreat, starting out with that speech, one of my mentors in the past said, you need to teach people how to be at your event, which seems so silly, but it's so important. And we do this now. Monika and I do this now, whether we're leading a group program or a workshop or a retreat, we teach people how to show up in the space. And it goes so far, and it's so beneficial. So I would recommend that anyone does that in the beginning of any time you're leading a group of people.
Well, and it's actually a really good tenet of adult learning theory too. I'm going to go all educator on you for a second here. That's actually for adults. Like, we need to know what's coming. We need to understand this is how we're supposed to behave. This is what this is going to look like. How structured that is depends on the person and what they need. But to give people, you're taking the pressure off, because if you think about it, you show up in a crowded room and you've never been in that crowd before. You're like, I don't even know, like, what is this going to look like? How do I need to be? Should I talk? Should I not? You take that pressure off by saying, this is what is expected of you. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. I don't have to think about that anymore. Our brains are too full. Take something out to think about, and it's much better.
Yeah. Okay. Next lesson. Be prepared for people to have opinions of you and give lots of feedback. Remember the rules about graciously accepting feedback. So this is a big thing that Monika and I like to teach. We also teach this in our Fearless Public Speaking Academy. Giving feedback, receiving feedback is such a useful life skill. And we think that everyone needs to learn how to do it, especially when you're leading a retreat. Because yeah, the women are so excited to share with you a lot of times kind of what's not working. And sometimes what is working, but our brains kind of tend to go like, oh, if you did this, this would be better, or this could be improved for next time. And for me, I'm in a really vulnerable space when I'm leading these, because you do so much work leading up to this and you just want everything to be so well. And then when someone comes at you and says like, oh, if you did this, this would be better, or it's hard. It's hard to receive feedback in that moment. So we created exit surveys, and and just a tip for you all, always have an exit survey at anything that you do, whether it's a workshop, group program, any event, and don't tell people to fill it out after the program's done. Have them fill it out while the program's still going on, because most people aren't going to do it if they don't have to do it. So before a closing ceremony, we passed around the exit surveys and asked some different questions of like, on a scale of 1 to 10, would you recommend this retreat to a friend? Where were you at in your life before this retreat? What was your biggest breakthrough on the retreat? And then you can use these answers and turn them into testimonials. And it's good for us, and it's good for the women attending as well to see all the results that they had. And so a lot of times too, when people would come at us with feedback during the retreat, I would say, hey, that's awesome. We love feedback. Can you save it and put it on the surveys that we're going to be giving to you at the end? So that's really useful to do that. That's creating boundaries and, teaching people how to show up. So that's really important. And Monika, I would love for you to talk about when we say people have different opinions on what retreat means.
Yeah. So a couple of things really quick to back up. Number one, lesson I learned in the corporate space: do not do an electric survey or electronic. It's electric. Boogie, woogie, woogie. No, don't do an electronic survey, because your response rate tanks. Like Krista said, it's when you do it afterwards, nobody is going to do it half the time. It's not that people are assholes or mean, but like, you lose the momentum of being in that space. And people get that in the email. We all get inundated with email requests. They just don't do it. So I think when we did that in the corporate world, we switched from paper during the class to electronic. Our response rate went from like 90% to like 10%. So then you don't get that feedback, and you really want that to be able to know how to move forward. So that's one thing. Another one too, remember that even if you're triggered by the feedback too, the right response to any feedback is always thank you for your feedback. Okay. There's the reminder that I don't know that I practice as much. So I'm saying this for myself as much as for anyone else. When someone gives you feedback, regardless of how you're feeling, the best response is thank you for your feedback. So just something to remind you of. Just one of the things Krista and I discovered, I think this is just a useful kind of example of the kind of feedback we got, and that like was really valuable, but that in the moment it was like, oh, well, God, it just makes your brain go 10 million places. And when you're trying to stay centered on the retreat and you're ideating, then it's like, oh my God, my brain is going to explode. But we had a great discussion with the women. And this is something too, if there's a piece of feedback that comes in that you feel like it's appropriate to have a discussion about, and note to self for all of you, sometimes it organically turns into a discussion without you inviting it, which isn't bad. But we had a discussion about like the word retreat, and that some women had this idea that it was going to be more like, just some growth stuff, but then mostly like sitting by the pool and relaxing. And they were surprised that we really made them work hard. So it's just this interesting thing to think about. It's like, oh man, even words can create thoughts for people. Like, I had this different expectation of what this was going to be, and it turned out to be this way, and it's not bad, but like, here's how that might have looked different. So I think that anytime they give you feedback, it's an opportunity for you to dig deeper. You get to decide what that looks like. And like Krista said, for boundaries, this is an opportunity for you to say, awesome, like, let's have this discussion. Maybe we do a follow-up call with the group, like a week after the retreat or something. Just thought of that, Krista. Maybe we should do that. Where we invite that discussion for people to kind of decompress and be like, okay, now that you're at home, like, what are you really missing about the retreat? And what was it that you're like, man, this would just make it 10 million times more awesome than it already was. So that's kind of where I was going with that. Molly says, I'm still recovering in a good way. Yeah, Molly, I know, we are too. I've tried to go back to work and like full throttle a million times this week, and I'm just like, meh, I don't wanna.
Yeah, and so quick tip right there for anyone who's leading retreats, everyone's energy levels are going to be different, but for me, I take it easy. I schedule some time off, because like your brain is like working 24/7. Right. And you're going to feel exhausted. You're going to feel emotionally hung over. You're going to be processing everything. And so I always recommend for people who lead retreats, don't rush back into work. Don't schedule a bunch of stuff after you get back. Like, really let yourself go light and easy. And yeah, I feel like now today, which is like a week later, I'm just starting to feel like my normal self again. So.
My mom just asked, what does ideate mean, please? Sorry, Mom. Ideate is just coming up with ideas, just fancy word. But thank you for asking the question.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, Mom, I can't wait for you to meet Krista when she's out here in September. It's going to be so fun. Okay, so our last thing of just things, that we might do differently is remember that you have more content than you need. Okay, seriously, cut back. Allow for discussion, allow for downtime and long breaks. This is something I've always known as a trainer, but I forget. And I think we all do. Any of us who have led discussion groups or led trainings, we're like, but this and this, and I want them to get all of this, and I want them to know this. And oh my God, if they don't know this, like, blah. And what you realize is shit always takes longer than you think it's gonna. We had 4 women and we still went long on almost everything. I was like keeping track of the time like crazy, but 4 women, and we had anticipated having 9. So in some ways, that worked out to our benefit as we learned through this. But remember, it's the scarcity versus abundance mindset, especially if you're a business owner. If you have too much content, that's freaking fantastic. Guess what? Your next retreat, your next workshop, you already got it all done. Okay. You don't want to give everyone everything up front. We want to, but you have to allow for discussion. You have to allow for processing. I wish we would have given the women more time to just go like hang out and walk around. And we're going to be doing that, taking that into consideration for our retreat in September, because we know just how important it is. And after we saw that, and we just saw how exhausted everyone was in a good way, but still like at the end of each day.
Yeah. And yeah, I knew that. I got feedback from my past 2 retreats about, they're like, it was so much. And then it still did you're right. You're like, I just have so much knowledge I want to share with everyone, but really, yes, the content is good, but really people are coming more for the experience. They're coming to be in a new location, to break away from their routine, to connect deeper with human beings. And so I recommend like doing 1, maybe 2 workshops a day tops. And then if you want to infuse other little things in there, like activities or yoga or breath workshops, and to always have at least a 15-minute break when you're switching, to let people, stretch a little bit, to get food, drinks, bathrooms. And then something we didn't really do, and I want to do for the upcoming retreat, is to have like a dance break too, or a yoga break, like just get people's bodies moving, because they're sitting for long periods of time and their bodies aren't used to that.
That was big feedback we got. We didn't mention that in here, but that was really valuable feedback, is like they were ready to move, and that it is a really important that we allow for people to move, or even if it's just stand up, sit down, some kind of movement to get the blood flowing. My mom says the info about feedback initiated some ideas when I go to travel school to be a trip leader. My mom's going to go be a tour guide. It's going to be amazing. I am glad. Molly says walk break. Yeah, Molly was on our retreat. She was awesome about going, being like, peace out, I'm going on a walk break. And that's so awesome. My mom likes the idea of a dance break. So there we go. Okay, so overall lesson, every program or workshop or retreat that you lead, you're going to learn more about yourself, about your boundaries, and about the boundaries and the life stories and the stuff that other people bring with them. So you just want to really lean into those lessons. And something I shared with the women this weekend, useful mantra in your head: it's not about me, it's not about me, it's not about me, over and over again, because your shit's going to come up and you have to keep reminding yourself 9.99 times out of 10, it is not about you. People are processing their own stuff. And so leaning into the lessons and the discussions can allow for some really beautiful breakthroughs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's transition then into what went well. We got 5 things that went well. There were more, but we've categorized them. First one is everyone got along really well, which was so cool, because we had some very different personalities within our crowd. We had Molly as someone who works with people with money and math shame. We had a Nashville singer with us. We've got someone from Finland who came in, and we had, someone who's very intuitive and a joy coach. Like, we had so many different personalities. And then our photographer as well, is a psychologist. So we had such different people come into this scene, and they all supported each other, were patient with each other, were so positive, and it was so cool to watch. And what Krista and I learned is that when you do one of these, you are allowed to get really choosy about who comes on board with you. In fact, you should, because you want to make sure their energy vibes with you, first of all, and what you're putting out there, but then also start thinking about the other people that are there and how they might interact with them. So, Krista, what did you want to add to that?
Yeah, one of the girls commented too, and she's like, man, I'm so impressed with you guys, Krista and Monika, that there was no drama, there was no cattiness. And she was worried about that, because as we all know, that when you get women into similar spaces, sometimes it can bring out very flavorful sides of us.
Flavorful, I like that.
Just watch reality TV, right? Watch The Bachelor. And, it was funny because, like, for me, when she said that, I was like, of course the women are going to get along. Of course they're going to be grateful and supportive towards each other and all these, because like in my mind, and this is what my business coach Lacey says, like, it wasn't an option for people to not get along. So again, it's really important for you as the leader to show up with a certain like high vibration mindset, energetic alignment of how you want this retreat to go. And the whole time I was planning this retreat, I was like, we're only going to attract women who are fully ready for this experience and vibe, yeah, with our brand and our message and our energy and everything. And so like, it just, for me, it wasn't even going to be a possibility that people wouldn't get along. And it was awesome because it truly manifested and everyone interacted beautifully. Two of the girls are actually they're leading a workshop together now this Sunday. So it's already fun to see them collaborating after the retreat and just to make these deeper friendships and connections. It's beautiful to watch.
I love that. So the next one is the speeches. Oh my God, I'm getting chills as I say this. The speeches were freaking phenomenal. And the cool thing is, we had a couple of the women who had gone through our Fearless Public Speaking Academy with us in the fall that joined us. So they had a little bit more practice with everything. But we had two other women join us who weren't. They got access to the academy as part of the retreat. They used our model for building and structuring their speech, and they showed up. Their speeches, oh my God, it was like, holy crap, it was so affirming for me and Krista because we're like, this shit works. Like we created this and it works. Yeah. And it was so powerful. So, it just goes to show that like when you have a story and you tell it from this beautiful heart place and the power of it, like, man, you can do wonders. We were all crying like the whole time. So.
And for anyone who doesn't know, this was a public speaking retreat, right? And so basically we were taking women who are business owners that have a message, they have these big life stories, and they're ready to share these stories on a bigger scale as a way to grow their audience, enroll more clients, and make a bigger impact. And so like Monika said, they got access to our digital version of our Fearless Public Speaking Academy that we run twice a year. And some of the women had already gone through in the fall and some women had not, but they all had access to the modules and our prior coaching to it. And they learned how to transform like all these beautiful things that have happened into their life into this powerful signature speech. And now they're going to go out and they're going to use that speech, to form their group programs, to create workshops, to book speaking gigs. And so again, it was just so cool to see them using their life story in that way, in a way that they never had before, and to know that this is going to change people's lives. And yeah, that was my favorite part of the retreat, is seeing them stand up there and deliver their speeches.
Yeah. And by the way, if Fearless Public Speaking Academy sounds like exactly what you need because you're like, I have this message I want to put out, but I have nowhere to start. We're starting classes for the spring in April. So, shoot us a note and we'll send you all the deets because it's going to be a magical experience. It already was the first time we did it. So we're so psyched to welcome in 10 more amazing women.
Yeah, totally. Okay. What's our next thing? All right, things that went well. So there was so much healing and breakthroughs and spiritual awakenings. And so our business is pretty much all online, except for the 2 retreats that we lead. And online is great, right? Because online is easy and you can assess people all over the world and you don't have to worry about parking, and you just open up your computer and there you go. But at the same time, there's still kind of that lack of connection. So by doing an in-person experience and having the women get to, meet in person, and they've been forming these relationships online, it's just the work you do is so much more powerful. And so, the women that work with us in our online courses, they get incredible results, but then to be like in our energy and in our presence, like, oh my gosh, we saw the transformation happen that weekend, and we just saw all these breakthroughs happen and what they walked away with. And so for me, it was like, oh, fuck yes, of course we're going to keep doing retreats, because like the shit really works, right? Like I know maybe for a lot of you, you're like, should I do one? Is it worth the time and energy? And what should I charge? And like, let me tell you, 100%, it's worth it to do retreats, because it really does transform people's lives just in a couple days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to keep us moving along since we're just got so much to share with you guys. The next one is that we made a profit, which is really cool for our first retreat. And I think it really speaks to the fact that like you don't have to have 10 million bells and whistles to make a profit on this. You can make it a good price that feels good to you and know that you're worthy of that price, because think about it. You are on, this is what I have to keep reminding myself of. You were on 24/7 all weekend. I mean, and Krista, Krista had people still there like throughout the week after I had left too. And so she was still on, she was still working, being present. And that means like your time is worth this money that people are coming. It's not just for whatever bells and whistles you offer them. It's for your time and your energy and the value that you give to them through whatever workshops or space you create for them. And it doesn't have to be crazy expensive. Like we were pretty deliberate about what we spent money on other than our Airbnb investment, which we learned. I mean, food was really not horribly expensive, our little gift bags, anything that we did, it really wasn't that bad. So you can absolutely make a profit on your first retreat.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to be transparent about numbers, our total retreat expenses were around $1,500, which is, that was again, gift bags, food, Airbnb, and a couple of other random things. So that's actually pretty good and pretty low. And again, if you don't make a profit, and honestly, most of the time when you start something new, you're not going to make a profit at first. And that's okay, because you get so much confidence and so many valuable lessons, and you got to be committed to still showing up despite the outcome. We teach that so much in our marketing. But no, we're happy. We're celebrating. It wasn't a huge profit. Honestly, I thought it was going to be a lot bigger than what it was. But at the end of the day, I'm all about thanking the universe for, what it gave us. And I know that for our fall retreat, it's going to be even bigger. We are raising our price for the fall retreat because we have more experience. We're offering more value and, different accommodations and everything. And yeah, I just know that like the more that we keep doing this, the more that this is going to be an abundant part of our plan and our way to serve people. And I feel, so excited about that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that kind of, Krista, led into our last point here about having more, like this whole thing gave us more experience leading retreats. Every time you do something, I'm a big proponent of just get out there and do the damn thing and figure out as you go what went well and what didn't go well. And I want to remind you, make sure you assess what went well, because it is so easy, like Krista said earlier, to jump straight into the do this differently. But we need to get better about celebrating what went well, because there's always something good that happened. And if you sit in that space of lack with what didn't go well, then you're sending different vibrations out to the world, and it might throw you some more shitty things, or it's not shitty, but you know what I mean, like more difficult things or challenges, than to give you more things that went really well or that go well in the future. So make sure that you celebrate what went well. And then this also gives you the opportunity to help others learn how to lead their own retreats. And that's kind of what Krista and I are leaning into also, why we did this today and why we're going to be creating content to show people how to lead their own retreats, because there's so much to it for a weekend or whatever you want to be doing. And what I've been learning lately is that there are a lot of big idea thinkers that have huge dreams in the world, but how to figure out the execution of all the little steps can be super overwhelming. And we love helping people with putting like a structure together that feels good, that they can kind of maneuver around and make their own. So that's really what we're looking to be able to do more of. Hi, Irene. Thanks for saying hi in the comments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we have upcoming, we have monthly workshops that we do at a really affordable rate. And we're going to be, one of those workshops will be teaching women how to lead their own retreats. Because that's actually like one of the number one requests we get is, how do I get started? How do I plan a retreat? How do I fill a retreat? So I'm so excited to be able to teach women how to do that. Again, if you watch today, you see that it's, even though there was some mistakes and messy lessons, it overall is 100% worth it. And we want to teach so many different coaches and healers and business owners how to lead their own retreats. And yeah, Jennifer, thanks for jumping on. She's going to be one of our photographers for the Colorado Fall Retreat. And yeah, so we just truly believe like, anything we do in our business and through fearless public speaking, whether it's a YouTube channel, start a podcast, emailing our list, leading workshops. Like, we want to do it first and really own the process. So that way, when we teach other business owners how to do it, we can really support and guide them. So that's why we kind of, to me, that's the true definition of being a leader. It's like paving the way first. And so now we're excited to be able to help others lead their own retreat.
Yay. Well, Krista, take us home. Actually, let me wrap us real quick around, the whole recap, and then Krista can take us home with closing us out. Tanya says that would be great. I'd love to attend that workshop. Awesome. Tanya, keep an eye out. We'll be creating that soon and putting an event out. So we'd love to have you join us. So quick recap on everything. Overall, you're going to get a lot of feedback, and that's okay. Just make sure you give yourself space and boundaries on how you want to receive that feedback and what you want to do with that. I think the overall theme with all of this is that people have their own needs, and you got to make sure that you are honoring your own needs as you are also trying to accommodate other people's needs. So I think overall, that's kind of the lesson that we learned with this, is that, take care of you, and you can also take care of others, but make sure that, bottom line, you take care of yourself too. And then just know that whatever you create is going to be awesome. It's awesome because you created it and you're an expert in whatever it is that you're putting out into the world. And I can't tell you how much more confident I feel, Krista. I'm sure you feel the same after that retreat, and just having these women look at us every day and be like, oh my God, you guys are so awesome. This is so amazing. We're getting so much out of this. And I can't even believe that you do this for this price point and all of this stuff. And it just really boosts your confidence and shows the value you have on the world. And it's amazing to watch the transformation that happens for the people who attend, because they're out now, every single one of them, I think, is out doing something differently as a result of being at the retreat, whether it's partnering together or reaching out to different types of clients that they figured out were actually who they needed to be reaching out to towards, or just discovering more about themselves. So just know that you're powerful. You're more powerful than you think you are, and especially when you lead these retreats.
And you can totally lead a retreat being 6 months pregnant. I was a little nervous about that because I'm in my 7th month now, and I did it, and it's possible. And so I don't know if anyone was planning on that, but if you get pregnant, you can still lead a retreat.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So Krista, take us home. What are our next steps for everybody?
Yeah, next steps. I was trying to think of this because we have a ton of different offerings coming up, but I don't want to overwhelm everyone here. And so what I'm thinking is we have our next monthly workshop coming up here pretty soon. We haven't set a date yet, but if you're on our email list and you follow us on social media, you'll see it. But we're going to be teaching people how to design their own online group coaching program. So you're definitely not going to want to miss that. It's going to be so valuable. And it's, like I said, we'll keep you updated. It's going to be $49. So definitely no-brainer price for the value that you're going to get. And you're going to walk away with knowing the title of your next group program and the tagline and the niche that you're working towards and the content and how to facilitate it and all of that good stuff. So you're not going to want to miss it. Again, we'll keep you updated on that. And so Tanya, I know you said you wanted to attend our future workshop on leading retreats, but I want you to definitely come to the February workshop on designing your online group program, because I know that you were interested in we talked about that after you attended our last retreat about how to create your first virtual workshop.
Yeah. And then I think the final piece in addition to that is start looking at your calendar, save the date. September 14th through 17th is going to be our next retreat here in Colorado. It's going to be up probably near Dillon or Breckenridge, which is a cute little mountain town. So lots of shops, and also the leaves are going to be changing during that time. And I can't tell you, I've lived in Colorado for 20 years. When the aspens change, the energy is insane. So you can get out and hike, you can be out in nature and everything. The weather's usually pretty warm. That's why we're going middle of September. And it's going to be amazing. It's going to be the heart-based sales retreat. And Chris and I have been leaning into this, idea that sales can feel really good. It doesn't have to feel slimy or sleazy or like you're, in the grind and all that kind of stuff. So we are going to be helping women figure out, like, how do you make sales feel really good for you? We're going to have an amazing transformational breath work exercise on Saturday evening with Madeline and Chad, who did a little mini workshop for us at this retreat. It was incredible. But it's an in-person session, and it completely like started as the catalyst of my year this year to my year being insanely good. So super exciting stuff with that. And we'll be sending out details. Drop us a comment too if that's something you want some more details on too, and we'll make sure that you get that information as we firm it up. But we're only accepting probably like 8 people to that retreat, so you want to get your name in soon because it's going to fill really fast. And I live in Colorado too, so it's definitely going to fill fast because I have so many people here who definitely are going to want to be there with us. So we want you there wherever you are in the world. Colorado's a beautiful place to go, and it really is magical in September. And we just want to share everything we know about intuitive, heart-based, spiritual sales and how you can take your business to the next level and feel really freaking good when you're selling.
Yeah, every woman should feel like a rock star when she sells and shouldn't be afraid of objections or getting on a sales call. And selling can be the most fun activity in the world. And we're going to teach you how to powerfully show up on your sales calls and get paid for the rates that you want to start getting paid at, so you can make this your full-time gig.
Hey. Well, awesome. Thank you everyone for joining us today. This was so fun as always, and we'll have information out soon on our next workshop, and we'll come to you next week with another Facebook Live. Krista and I, we tend to fly by the seat of our pants with our topics, so we'll see. Stay tuned what that's going to be next week. Bye.
Bye.